All right.
Should we start?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to start now. Thank you for coming. This is much bigger than we expected, obviously.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So this is the first Google, what do we call it? The Google Cloud Platform User Group. So this is the first one in Chicago. Why did we start? So why did we create a Google Developers Group? That's actually the name of another Google Developer Group, which is kind of focused on like everything Android. So they had an event last night talking about like Google Actions. Some of our people went there yesterday. It was an awesome event, and we encourage everyone to check that out. So check it out on Meetup. It's called the Google Developers Group, and it's kind of like everything Android all the way to Google. We started more because we wanted to start this Google Cloud Platform Group that kind of focused on business in Chicago. So we didn't feel like there was a big enough community kind of pushing what we thought was a really cool platform here. So I've personally played with, tools like BigQuery. Now that we've had a chance to play with like Dataflow and PubSub, we think from an enterprise perspective, and especially as a data company that does like we do consulting for various mid-sized enterprises and large enterprises, we think this is like an awesome solution, especially compared to some of the other ones out there like Amazon and Azure. And it kind of seems intimidating from the first glance, but man, it's easy. So, so we're just Google Cloud Platform evangelists. We wanted to get more people from the Chicago community out here. It looks like we did that. I want to keep it going though, and so does everyone from Google. And so we encourage everyone here, check out our meetup. Please join. Please present, volunteer to come up with some topics. Let us know what you guys want to talk about, because we want this to become a building community here in Chicago, because again, it's not big enough, and it obviously has enough demand. So we want to see more of that. We'll be meeting the second Thursday of each month. So we've got a couple more out there. So if you want to go out there and RSVP, I think we already have like 10 for next month. Please do so. And again, the topic isn't arranged yet, but if anyone has ideas for topics that either you want to present on, you would like us to present on, or that you would like Google engineers to present on that you want to hear more about, this is the venue to do it. And then I think Pat, Google wanted to.
Just a couple things. Number one, you guys, thank you so much for everyone coming out tonight. Honestly, we didn't quite expect this many. This is a fantastic turnout for the number of registrants versus coming out. That's awesome. The only thing is, so I'm with Google. I am not one of your engineers that you're going to come to me and ask me, and we're going to have these discussions, but I can point you to a lot of good resources. But we just kind of wanted to emphasize that what we're doing here is this is a community, as you were saying, Fred. And we absolutely welcome your feedback and your ideas, whether it's criticism or praise or whatever we're doing. So let's just keep communication going, and basically we're listening. We'd love to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, Melanie and I are from Aptitive, and one thing that everyone we talked to at Google said was make sure everyone here knows that this is a venue where you can give feedback. So let us know what sucks about the product. Let us know what you like. Let us know what needs to be fixed, because they're here to listen. And yeah, I think it's a great place to do it. So do it openly, and hopefully we can make this a better product. So that said, who here is from Google? Just get an idea of.
Okay, one. We got one guy from Google. All right. Woo! Welcome, Adam.
So I'm told sales engineers might be popping in and out throughout the evening.
There's a bunch of us over here. We don't want to interrupt the flow.
Okay.
All right. So they're outside.
So if you need experts, there.
We'll find you the ones.
Yeah. Who here uses Google Cloud Platform? Wow.
Nice.
Awesome. Who uses Google Cloud Platform at work actively? So it's like the same group. Cool. Awesome. Who has never used Google before?
Like Google
Cloud Platform.
Obviously.
I'm not going to say. I'm just going to call it GCP now. Who's never used GCP before? Cool.
Who just wanted to come to the Google office?
Us too. So Melanie had also never used Google Cloud Platform before either until 2 weeks ago. And so here we are speaking about it. But we thought it would be cool because one thing we really liked about GCP is that it's really easy to pick up. It looks intimidating. You go to like the documentation, it's like, well, there's a bunch of Java code, there's Python code, there's Go code. Which one do I use? Where do I start? What can it do? And so just to like torture Melanie, I was like, hey, you should go present a demo and code a bunch of stuff in GCP and then present it live in front of, I guess, 100 people. And she was like, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought it'd be like 20 people.
Yeah. So here we are. So today, we're going to talk to you about a couple different things. I guess first I can introduce myself. So my name is Fred Bliss. I'm a co-founder of Aptitive. We're a local Chicago consulting company focusing a lot on like data-centric projects. So I've done a lot of ETL development. If anyone has had to live through the horror of like SSIS development, especially 2005 and 2008, and Informatica, and some even worse one, mainframe development, I've done all of that. So I still do some of it. And I mix between that and cloud. So it's an interesting project where, you know, you take like something from a mainframe DB2 and put it on Azure or Google Cloud. So yeah, we do that stuff. We're a couple blocks away, about 25 people. And we love the product. We're Google partners, and we would like to continue evangelizing it. And then
I'm Melanie. I've spent the last 3 years as an ETL developer out at Discover Card. And in a large company like that, I was ETL and only ETL. So I joined Aptitive 3.5 weeks ago and have never really used Java, have never even been in Eclipse, have never used GCP or Maven or any of the new things that I've learned in the last 2 weeks. So they threw me on it to see, one, I think how much they should have hired me or not.
That's our interview.
And just to see, like, so if me coming from a background of I'm learning as I go, and you'll see in the demo some of the things that I've gotten up and running, like you guys who actually know what you're doing, how much you'll be able to like use GCP and how cool of a tool all the different components are.
Yeah. So we'd love this to be interactive. So if you see things that we're doing that's like, whoa, what the hell is that? These guys are crazy. Let us know.
And up at the top, and then on the two panels on the side, there's a live Q&A. So on your phones, you can just go to that website and ask questions as we go. And we've got some people who will be tracking those. And then at the end, we can go over questions. But if you've just got a burning one and you're like, wait, and you got to raise your hand, that's fine too. Yeah. Feel free.
Just for the people who don't necessarily want to stand up and talk. And we have a Q&A at the end, so we'll try to go through a lot of them. We're also live streaming on YouTube, and I have no idea if it's working. But
hopefully. Hi, Mom. I gave my mom the link. Hi, Mom.
Maybe. So we are not going to go through all these. You can go to many other places and venues to find out what all the Google products are. This is not even close to all of them. We're going to focus on these right here. So we could do an overview, but that might take 15 minutes and then the meetup's over. We're going to focus on a couple. So compute is a big place. So that's kind of like where you create VMs, where you create apps. Google Cloud is a little bit different in that it creates a whole bunch of managed VMs for you. So if you've ever used AWS or Azure, it's a much more, the platform as a service is much more, I guess, hidden. So you can create your apps and there's stuff happening behind the scenes with VMs. You don't really see it happening. For this, you've got like kind of your compute engine. You can spin up VMs. You can create apps. You can create containers, which is all based on Docker and Kubernetes. And we could spend an entire session about that. And maybe we will later, but not right now. And then that all uses a bunch of storage. So you can use cloud storage, which is basically blob storage, to store your data. And then what we're going to focus on, again, because we're a data-centric company and we like data, is BigQuery, PubSub, and Dataflow. So BigQuery, has anyone here used that?
Same people.
Yeah, same people. How about PubSub? Less?
All right.
And how about Dataflow? Wow, okay. So Dataflow is kind of the ETL tool. It's really similar to what Spark does. I think they split off recently. I don't know the full history of it. PubSub is like, anyone remember message queues from way back in the day? Like Windows MQ, yeah. RabbitMQ, yeah, same thing. Technology hasn't really gone anywhere. It's just, we're back to client servers again. Yeah, and then BigQuery is like a managed database, so or rather a managed data warehouse. So having to like index stuff and, you know, run partitioning, that's all gone. You just pay per terabyte and you just run SQL. It's cool. It's easy.
I think we're at 7 already.
Okay, so what is Dataflow? Dataflow is an ETL tool. Again, not many people have used it, but how many people here have used like SSIS or Informatica? Okay, so a good chunk of people. Really similar, except you don't have the GUI. So you're writing your code. I think primarily right now it's Java. I think there's a Python SDK, but a lot of it is like kind of painful, right? So when you're running like SSIS or Informatica, you constantly have to deal with your resources. So, you know, say you want to run like a giant data load. I mean, how many times have you sat there and waited like 8 hours or sat there at night waiting for something to finish just because, you know, you're running on a machine that's like 8 gigs of RAM, a couple CPUs, et cetera. Well, the cool thing about Dataflow is you can run up to like 1,000 nodes, which is 1,000 VMs, spin them all up, run it really quickly, and then spin it all down when your job's done. It also lets you do real-time streaming analytics with PubSub, which Melanie's going to show you. This is just kind of what it looks like. Anyone familiar with like ETL tools you're gonna feel right at home with this. What is PubSub? Again, it's message queues. So it's a more sophisticated version of it. So I give data to Melanie, Melanie gives it to someone else, and it gets there. The cool thing about it is that if it's disconnected, so say one of the devices is offline or the database is offline, it'll still get there eventually. So you can do real time. You can connect to any kind of API. So if we had more time, we could maybe change our source to be like the CTA API and connect to that. So there's another cool technology. Go ahead.
So what's a business application we could use PubSub for, theoretically?
Say you had like an API for your sales system. So every single sales transaction that's happening, and you're looking at it from maybe a geographical area. If you're like a retailer, you might want to see how are my sales doing across the country. You could subscribe real time. So typically in ETL, we're running in batch, right? And, you know, we're saying like every 5 minutes or every day, run at this time and get the data from whatever my change data capture point is. With PubSub, you're kind of listening. So it's not batch, the data is coming to you and you're getting it real time. So you can see it as it's happening.
Yeah, so it pushes it. And the demo that we're going to show is a Google demo. And they're simulating real time in this demo, but that's what you could do it for. And so management can have real time visualization as the data is being pushed to it. So.
Yeah. And that demo would not work if it was in batch. You're not just going to like keep running it. You could do micro batches, but PubSub is it's much cooler. It's easier. So why would you use Dataflow? Again, you spend more time on the code, on the ETL, than you are dealing with the resources. So my first job out of college, or rather my first project, I was monitoring ETL jobs in Informatica. So I'd sit there for like 12 hours watching for it to fail. And if it ever failed, I restarted it, and that was it. Well, with this, you're going to spend more time actually doing your job, and that role would have been eliminated because I just would have sped up everything, let it finish in a couple of minutes, maybe less, and it's done. Supports a wide variety of sources, so you can connect to pretty much anything. Why PubSub? I think we kind of talked through that. So security is good. It's decoupled from being online, and just the scalability of it is incredible. So we're using a public data set for our example, but you can connect that to any API you want, so public or otherwise. Now it's demo time. So this is a code lab that we took from Google with the idea that we didn't think we'd get anywhere close to finishing this demo tonight, and we probably won't. But you can go home and do this. Their code labs are actually really well done. So highly encourage everyone, check them out. This one is good, it's fun, it has a really cool outcome, and hopefully we'll show you good stuff.
The basis of this demo is it's a taxi company. And the boss wants to see some visualizations of where his taxis are And so the guy creates a heat map, and the boss says, oh, that's got too much info and it's taking too much money to run all of this. Make it less. So the part that I'm going to show is doing a heat map based on like pinpoints. So how many taxis are within this little area at any one given time. And then it also creates a run of how much money is being made in that time window as well.
So the business parallel for that might be like the retail store or supply chain, or you could come up with a couple.
So it's just viewable from a website?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll go back to that. This link right here actually takes you there, but we'll post it on the meetup as well.
So for those of you who haven't been onto GCP console, this is it. So you go in and you create a project, and you get a very fun little project ID. This one is Meta Chalice. My other one is Imposing Kayak. I like that one too.
It's like celebrity baby names.
So within here, you can go and, well, that's not what I wanted to show first. So if we look at the compute engine, this is where you would see your VMs. As you can see right now, there's no VMs going. And then what else can I show you? BigQuery. So I adapted the code on the lab. I added some so that it would also be going into BigQuery. Here is a table. I'm going to create another one with the code. But so I just wanted to show you that, see, there's only one table, so that when we come back, you'll see that the code created the table and is loading it while it happens.
And for those interested in playing with BigQuery, there's a ton of open data sets. Like really
over
cool
on
stuff.
the side here. These are all open data sets that you can just practice querying, see what's out there and stuff. So if we go over to the code real quick, I'm just going to real quick talk about what the chunks of code are doing so that when we then run it, you can actually see it happening.
Or we can code in real time and watch everyone.
Yeah. So this first comments are just the command line arguments that you'll pass through to it. And in this particular one, in the demo, it gives you the layout here. But to check that, it's really easy to do. You can go over into PubSub and create a subscription to whatever it is that you are wanting to get the data from. So this one is called Taxi Rides Real Time. As you can see over here, Taxi Rides Real Time. And so you just create a subscription to it, and then you can go and pull data from it. So if I grab that little bit of code.
And in the parallel to like the real world, this could be your sales API. It could be another public API, and you can just create as many subscriptions as you want to that.
So if it's a outside subscription and you don't know what the data looks like, you can go create the subscription, and then from the command line, you can just run a very simple G-Cloud is the SDK that you'll use. That's PubSub, and then the name of my subscription was test. So if you just let that run for just a sec, it should come up real quick, and it returns one record so that you can see the layout of this subscription that you're going to get the data from, so that you can make sure you have the data types right, the names, all that. And it's, of course, going to take a really long time.
This command is so much easier. I just had to memorize all the PowerShell commands to get Azure certified. The test literally made you put in PowerShell commands, and it's crazy. Compared to this, it's just straightforward.
And so
get your subscription, pull.
Yep, there you go. So right here is one record. So it tells me all of the different fields, all the different data types. So then you can then create your BigQuery table based on all of that.
I think the source file is Avro.
Yes, in the code it has an Avro coder. So then if we get into the functions, this first function is just taking the latitude and longitude from each record and just kind of aggregating them. So within 500 meters of this point, all of the taxis within that 500-meter radius. So it just is creating points and aggregating them so that we aren't seeing the entire heat map. The next set is then, based on that latitude and longitude, creating what is called a key value pair. That's this KV right here. So it's creating a key value. And the key is the latitude and longitude, and then the value is the actual taxi. Oops, wrong way. And then we get into the meat of the code. This first part is just setting the pipeline argument. So the pipeline is the actual flow of the data within Dataflow. That's the actual data moving around.
So those used to traditional ETL, like if you took the SSIS parallel, this would be, everything you showed before is like your source, and now we're in the data flow.
And this is getting, this particular one is using a custom pipeline options, which is another Java code over here. So it's the source project, and there's that in PubSub, it's called a topic. So that is the actual data set is the topic. So this one is called taxis real time. And so source, obviously source, but the destination they call a sync. So the sync project is my project that I created, that meta chalice. And then the sync topic is where I'm going to publish my data to. And this one, I called it visualizer eclipse. So we'll see that when we go back into PubSub, that's where the data is getting published to. And then you can pull from there to create your actual visualizer.
So we just stole the visualizer from Google's GitHub for this code lab, but
you could create
reality,
your own.
Yeah, you could use your own reporting tool. You can use Tableau. You could hook up probably any reporting tool these days.
That data, the record flow that I showed earlier, in this one, I'm not using all of them because I'm aggregating. So I want the latitude, longitude, and then the number of taxis within that little area. Here, so now is where we actually start doing stuff. That was just kind of setting some stuff up. This section is reading from the PubSub. So it's using that source project and source topic, that real-time taxis, and it's reading it in, and I'm putting it into a variable or data stream, into an object data stream. And then I am creating, for this one, we're doing a 60-second window, and it's a sliding window. So every 3 seconds, that 60 seconds is moving.
We were thinking about using the CTA API just to make it a little more Chicago, but it's only updated every minute, and we kind of thought that would suck for a presentation.
Sit here and wait. So
okay, guys.
Then with that 60-second window, it is pulling the meter increment, which is the amount of money that is earned in that little bit of window, and summing it for all of the taxis within that 60 seconds so that we can see this is how much money all of the taxis in this minute are earning right now. And then it slides 3 seconds. And this is how much money they're earning. And then it slides 3 seconds. So it just keeps, you'll see it when we get to the visualizer, you'll see it updating. Then we're getting ready to display that information. And then we are putting it into that PubSub topic, into my visualizer topic. Oops, sorry. So this is where we're writing it to the PubSub. So that is just for the money part. But if I want to see where those taxis are, then I needed to do a different PubSub publication as well. So for this part, we are, instead of that 60-second window, we want to see where the taxis are every second. So we're going to create a new 1-second window. We're going to write that to the visualizer. And then we are going to also write it into BigQuery. So at the same time, it's taking that 1-second window information, putting it into PubSub for the visualizer, and putting it into BigQuery so that you can do back-end analytics on it in the real-time streaming.
Yeah, we branched the code a little bit. So the code lab does not use BigQuery, but we were like, let's be adventurous.
Why not?
We love BigQuery. So.
And then to get it up and running is really very simple. You just go to run configurations, make sure that your script that you actually want to be running is the one highlighted. You can add your arguments right there. So if you see right here is the name of my project, and if you'll notice the number of workers is 2, so that when it actually starts running, you'll see that 2 VMs come up.
What if we wanted to make it 1,000?
You would have to do some configurations of your quota within the GCP console, but you could definitely get that up and running. So right now it's uploading files, the jar files, to the data store.
Yeah, so it's kind of compiling it up to like your staging area and bringing in everything it needs. And I think also spinning up the VMs, right?
Yes, it'll once everything, it's into cloud storage. Sorry, not data store. It's still getting my head around. There's a lot of different storage options, and which one am I going to? So it's going to cloud storage. I created, it's what they call it, a bucket. So it's writing all of those jar files to the bucket right now, and then once those are all up and running, you can go into Dataflow, and so now I've got a Dataflow up and running.
So those are all the jobs that she ran.
I've been playing a lot over the last
Yeah.
week. Oh, and so, you know, if you see way up here, right now, you can sign up for a 60-day trial and get $300 to play around with. I've been doing this pretty much 8 hours a day for the last 2 weeks, and I've used $6.20. So
it's pretty hard to use your credit.
so this is the pub sub. There is the data flow. So going back to the code, here we're reading in from pub sub, and then we're splitting. We have that sliding 60-second window, and then we have that 1 second window. It'll
This is a place that probably feels a lot more familiar to those who are not used to like kind of coding in more with like the GUI ETL interface, but it's actually really good. And the cool thing is, no matter how many nodes are running, it's still taking care of it for you. So you could bump this up to like 1,000 nodes, and it would still be running in a way that you don't care about. So things could be out of order. Maybe it's taking a row here, row here, row here from all these different VMs across the region that you deployed this in. And then it just kind of brings it back up, aggregates it, takes what you want, and puts it in the end result.
Can I ask questions in the middle?
Yeah.
Does this support any kind of automated testing natively?
It's got APIs. So any automated testing tools I can connect to an open API, because you could do all this either through a command line using the SDK, or you could do it all through a REST API.
One frustration I had with SSIS.
Yeah, that's not, you can't do that. It's like all DTSX files and XML, but yeah, I would assume so. Any modern testing tool I think supports REST API calls, so it's all open.
And so as you can see, data is flowing through this right now, and you can drill down into some of these little steps. So this one was called sum the whole window. So it's getting with the key, it's counting how many there are per key, and then it's getting the value. Now, if we go over to the compute engine where there were no VMs running earlier, there are the 2 worker nodes that I told it to spin up.
And that's where things are a little bit different from like Azure. So after having spent a lot of time with Azure and AWS, you don't really see this happening. Google took kind of a different approach where they're spinning up these VMs and running things. And you see, you could SSH into each one of these if you want to get really geeky and like do certain things with them. But it'll spin up all the VMs. You can see all the infrastructure. And if you care about that stuff, you can go do something with it. If you don't care about it, then just let it do its thing. And then when it's done, it'll just delete itself.
And so you can see a table was created. So you can, and there's the 3 fields that I had specified, latitude, longitude, and taxis. And you can query it while it's running. So let's see how many it's loaded so far. 73,000. How about now? 75,000. So it's loading them as we're talking, and you can run analytics on it.
Yeah, the idea of why you would do this, so if we're doing real-time streaming analytics with this thing right here, or I'm sorry, with that thing, then you could go in the back end, maybe while management, the big boss guy is looking at the heat map of seeing what's going on with the taxis. You can have all your data science people / data analysts looking in the back and kind of doing some queries in SQL, in BigQuery to find out exactly what's going on. So the boss might see, oh, hey, we had a huge drop in revenue, like around the 902 mark. They can go back in and find all the details at the same time in BigQuery and then come back later.
And for some reason, my pub sub is gone. That's lovely. The topic is there.
Did it get deleted?
Yeah. Somehow messing around earlier, I deleted my topic. So there we go. I'm like, it's right there. I can see it. I don't know why it's saying it's not there.
Yeah, it was there.
So what it would look like, this is what happens with live demos,
Let's just draw circles.
is on the heat map there were, so if you just did all of them, if you weren't summing it up, it was this really nice heat map that would show where all the taxis were.
Yeah.
When I was summing it up by geographical, by those 500 meters, there were just little dots all over in a nice little grid, so it was a dotted heat map.
Yeah,
But
so the idea
Felt
is
like breaking today.
you would see like where the taxis are. You could see like where the revenue is based on the color of it, see where they're going, and then maybe you see like there's a whole bunch over here. So someone like Uber or Lyft might want to look at something like this and see, oh hey, there's a ton of taxis over here, and they're making a ton of money, but we should deploy more over here. And maybe you have some over here where there's no money coming in at all. So you can make those decisions, but then at the same time, you can go back into BigQuery and start to analyze, well, why was it? We usually have tons of revenue wherever that is in New York City, and find out, exactly what happened. Same thing with like a supply chain thing or a retail scenario.
And so then when you're done running the job with a streaming one like this, you can just go in and tell it to stop. And then you can either cancel, which it'll just kill it all at the moment, or you can drain, which will let it finish everything that's in the pipeline. So it takes a little bit for this to actually go through and cancel, but then coming back to Compute Engine, those VMs are spinning down, so those will eventually go away and nothing will be showing there as well. But like Fred said, getting a VM up and running is just a couple of clicks. So.
Is this on?
Yes.
Yeah, and the cost of using this is like nothing. I think Melanie forgot about it and just left it running overnight. And
Yeah, I went to lunch one day with an old professor, was gone for 2 hours, and I think I left it in like 7 cents.
It's hard to spend money. I guess if you bumped up to like 1,000 nodes, it might do something. I don't know if I want to try, but you can set budgets. So again, you get the trial, go and log in, create a trial account, and then just set a budget. And you can be pretty certain that you won't get charged. I remember reading a GitHub story of some guy who accidentally left something running and got charged like $15,000 for like one test run. So be careful.
All right, so you want to?
Yeah, so since we failed miserably in that demo, seriously though, people, you should go take this code lab and see the end result. It is actually really cool. And I think the coolest thing to me is that it just spun up these VMs right here. So even without the end result, you can see that it spun up these two worker nodes to do its job. And again, if I put 1,000 here, 100 here, whatever, you'd see all those nodes just popping up and then going away. And that's something you can't do on premise at all. And you're not going to build like 100 different machines just to run one ETL job that maybe you process once a week. So I thought that was the coolest part to me from a geeky standpoint.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not familiar with that API. So is that all in real time? Those 70,000 entries in real time? Okay.
Yep.
And then, so that was.
It's taking it from like an Avro JSON file. So there's some public data sets for PubSub.
So is the scheduler actively querying it in a set interval?
Yeah. So the PubSub, we're subscribed to.
So we subscribe to the PubSub, and so when new data is put to the PubSub, it pushes it out to anything that is subscribing from it.
Schedule the PubSub to do the query of the initial API server to get the data.
You just set it up, and there's no scheduling. It's
so it can only handle like a JSON outputting API.
It can do CSVs too. So you could set it to whatever your source is. It could be an API, it could be a source, and maybe it's a file location. You could keep dropping files in there, and it's just going to keep processing them as it's coming. So it could be listening in real time if you have the data. This data is a little different because it's simulated data. So instead of using like the current date timestamp as its date for displaying data, it was using like mock data. It had a field in there for like fake date just to simulate it.
So you might be thinking, well, what if we don't want to use Google for everything? Like we've already invested in these other.
You know what? I'm just going to go to my blog post. So I wrote a blog post about this a couple days ago, and I thought this was cool. So I wanted to create a SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server instance running on Windows Server on Google Cloud. And you can do that, and you can do it really quickly. So after having played, with all the other public clouds, it takes a couple of minutes to spin up a VM. waiting for a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. It's still pretty fast compared to other ones. But this just kind of blew me away. So there's a public images group or page. You just search public images or go to my blog, and you can find a list of all of the different like OSs or predefined templates. So you can see there's like Core OS, you got CentOS, then Windows Server, and then you can also have a SQL Server 2016 one. So let's say I'm gonna install SQL Server 2016 Enterprise. I'm gonna create an instance of that. And Melanie's gonna be like, why did you charge me so much? So it'll tell you exactly where you're paying your money for, which is kind of nice. So there's a bunch of these for different software vendors out there. So you can see what the breakdown for the VM is, what the breakdown for the software licenses. It's all included, but it's also transparent. Not always true. And I can make my machine whatever I wanted. So I can make it 8 vCPUs, and I'm gonna put 50 gigs of RAM on there. It'll even tell me how to save some money. Google pricing is a little bit different too, because the longer you run your VM, the bigger discount you get. So if you run it for like 24 hours a day, I think you end up paying 40% of the total. So they actually encourage you to run it, run it longer. Of course, you can shut it down as soon as you're done with it too. So, let's say I want to create a test environment because a client wants to see SQL Server 2016 really quickly. So I might spin this up, the night before, build my code, and the next day, once I show it to my client, just delete it. And so I'm scheduled to spend $2,800 right now. If we left that running 24/7, that's what it would be. I can create that. And you can see it spinning up here, which is kind of nice. You could leave and see these notifications still going. Let's see. So used to refreshing, I don't even need to do that anymore. And look, it's up. The VM is up in like 20 seconds. When I did it, I literally like created it, and then a couple seconds later it was up. And it just blew my mind. And then I can RDP into it. So I'm gonna connect. Except I didn't set up my firewall. Yeah, so I could go in, set up my firewall, and then it's up and running, which is just crazy. See if it works this one time.
He did it on his computer, not on mine. So.
But I promise it works. So here's what it looks like. Yeah. So this is what I did. So I just kind of went through its pricing, and then I RDP'd in, and it was up and running. SQL Server was there. The services were up and running. Everything was there. I could start running reports. I could create a tabular model and analysis services. It was actually pretty cool. And it even supports like always on for those familiar with SQL Server. So you could set up a couple different VMs and have that working. So. Okay, do we have time for one more magic trick?
App Engine. So
yeah,
App
Melanie
Engine,
created an awesome website.
Yeah, so App Engine lets you very quickly deploy websites and mobile apps. So, Fred asked me to create a website for the company, to create a really nice guest book, simple guest book app for people to come in and sign. So I did. And when I showed it to him, he was like, yeah, that's really not great. Well, that's really not it. Let's try it. Yes, helps if I go to the right project. Here we go. See, it's the best ever. And I don't understand why he didn't like it, but he didn't.
And this one is imposing kayak.
So, I mean, what's not to love about this website? It's got a dancing baby. Come on. But he's like, no, make it all boring. So, I had to create some code for that. And once that code is ready, I did testing on my own server. So I've tested it on the dev server. It's up and running. This is all you have to do to get it to deploy.
Maven, that was another thing that.
Yeah, I've never used Maven before. Still don't know what it is, but you know, I got it going. So let this run for just a couple seconds, and we'll have a whole new version of the website.
So App Engine is kind of like the platform as a service equivalent, where you don't have to worry about any of the servers. What's cool about App Engine is you can keep all your version history too.
Yeah.
So
while that is loading real quick, I was going to try and fix my visualizer, I think.
On the wrong project?
No, I go back to the right project. Let's see how that's doing. So it's just great. Maybe it needed to go to that regular old visualizer one.
By the way, we're using Eclipse here, but you can use IntelliJ.
Yeah, I did it in IntelliJ first, and they seemed to think that Eclipse was a lot easier, so I moved everything over there.
So pick your poison.
All right, let's run that again. Let's check on this. Why is everything not being very fast?
Ooh,
all right, here we go.
Done.
No, it's compiling, but
Wi-Fi. Too many people.
I know. Get off the Wi-Fi, everybody. You're slowing me down. All right, so that is back up and running. Let's check the data flow, see if that is going.
That's still going, right?
No, this is the new one that so again, that one's been going for 11 seconds. I just spun up a new one. So it's working on building it all, getting it up and running. All right, so let's look at my new website, see if Boss Man is happy with this one. So that's how easy it is to get a new website up and running. So I go to versions. So this one is the one I just deployed. You can see the time, 7:21. So it's not like I was cheating. I did just deploy it.
By the way, developers who hate GUIs, you can do this all through the command line, all of it.
And so
It's actually a lot quicker.
then I can bring this to the boss man and say, all right, does this one meet your approval? Yeah, it's real nice and boring. Okay. So now I can go back into here and I can click this one and I can migrate all the traffic over there. I can migrate part of it. So you can have several versions of it out there and migrating traffic to different versions. And if he then comes back and says, you know what, your dancing baby was pretty awesome. Let's go back to that. It's really easy to get it back over, migrated to the original one. So.
Or she could set the routing so that only my IP address goes to the other one, and then everyone else sees the baby. I'm like, oh, it's good.
See,
Cool.
So that 20% right now, I didn't migrate all of it. So that 20% is just him. He'll just go to the new one. Everybody else will see my dancing baby, and everybody will be happy. So, all right, let's see if this is up and running here.
So our old data flow job is still going, right?
No, this is the one I stopped that other one.
Oh, this is somewhere. Okay.
All right, so let's see if we've got a.
Whoa.
Nope, it didn't like it. All right, so that's still broken.
You should go do this at home, though.
It is really cool when you get
Yeah.
it working, like, and it is,
Yeah.
moving around and the red dots are all moving. It's pretty cool.
Or connect your own reporting tool to it.
So,
It's
all right, so let's open it to the Q&A part.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that was the end of our demo. So we'll jump over to Q&A, see if we have any questions in there. In the meantime, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to comments. Just feel free to throw it out there.
So do we have any? Do we have any questions on the Q&A? That it closed?
Of
What in
course.
the world? Was it because I left? Because I exited. Maybe when I exit presenting mode, it's like, oh, you're all done.
All right. So sorry. So people who put in your questions, you're going to have to ask them in person now. Or comments.
Anything? All right, so if,
Is there a way to limit your dollar usage? You mentioned the one fellow had $15,000 and
you can create budgets and then create
Oh, we
alerts
should-
on the budget.
Yeah, we
So-
should destroy that.
Oh yeah, I'll get, like, it's not gonna use up that much money, but so I can show them
Yeah,
where you can.
yeah.
So-
You can set a budget where you get alerts.
Yeah, so you can go into billing and set a budget. So, right now I've got the promo, but so you can set an actual budget and then set alerts for it.
Yeah, right over there. It's the first thing I tell everyone to do when they're playing with this.
So I didn't want to, if I wasn't sure how much I was going to use of that 300, how fast I was going to use. So I set a budget of, I think, $1 and said, alert me when I've used, 1% of it. So within there you can, so down here you can say when you've used a certain percentage, alert me, or when you've used a certain dollar amount, you alert me. So you can set up that. So
You don't want to forget to shut down that $15,000
right.
VM.
So
Good.
Just playing around with this tool, are there any thorough tutorials this fall using that'll kind of walk you through everything?
yeah, so
This one right
this
here,
this
yeah.
taxi demo does, hit a lot of different points. But then I wanted to play around with some different areas that weren't part of this. So with that app engine, within the GCP documentation, there are a lot of tutorials for each of the different, so, if you're interested in BigQuery, there's tutorials within that documentation for that. And so within each of those, there are a lot of tutorials.
If you search Google Cloud Code Lab, you'll find all of them. They actually just released a .NET one. So if anyone here is a .NET developer and wants to start developing on Google Cloud Platform, it's actually a pretty cool code lab. I think it walks through like Kubernetes and .NET and everything. They're really good.
Saw another question. Chicken out, you didn't want to ask.
You guys have any like gotchas for working with Dataflow? Is there anything that you thought you were trying to do and it was a bit tricky?
The data flow, just learning some of those terms, and like I said,
Like
I'm
the
not a
sync,
Java
yeah.
developer. And so,
It's a different, when you're coming from ETL, like traditional ETL, coming
And
to like
just-
sync and everything, it's just kind of confusing terminology.
and learning what things are in the imported libraries. So I didn't show you all of the different, those are all the different libraries that I brought in, BigQuery, and then all of the Dataflow ones. And so I was trying to be, a good coder and not hard code this. That's the table that we loaded. So I was trying to not, and I was, trying to figure out within, on this other one where it has the sync project and the source project, it didn't have any of those that I could find for data set and for tables. So I could have played around with it and made, actual parameters within variables within, but
Just navigating this landscape is the hardest thing, and that's what we found that
yeah,
worked.
just learning what things are available. Because you might want to do something, but it's like, I don't know if so. And because it's still so new, there is stuff out there on like Stack Overflow, but not mounds of it because everybody's still learning. So
Some of my problems with it was trying to look up the guide documentation and it's saying one thing, trying that and not working, and going to looking at code base, and that's not actually the parameters possible.
Yeah,
yeah,
This question is
trial and error. Yeah,
trial and error, and then just,
and I think as
it's getting there.
As
All the cloud
they
platforms
roll
are
out
like
different
that.
versions, it's
Cool. Well, we're way over on time. If you guys want to stop by, chat, happy to do so. But thank you all.
thank you very much. And like we said, if you want to present,
Yes,
let us know.
yes. Please do so. And again, take up Pat software on the Google stuff. So give feedback. We'll know
Right.
about your API issue.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Live stream.
Yeah.